Hi Palak, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing wonderfully great. Thank you so much for coming on this show. शो क्या मतलब अभी तो बहुत छोटा है पर होपफुली बहुत बड़ा हो जाएगा एंड
Thanks for having
होपिंग
me.
यस सबसे पहले जानना चाहते हैं कि आज सबसे पहले जाने आगे इस पॉडकास्ट के अंदर बढ़े आगे लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड कि पलक है कौन और पलक अभी क्या कर रही है और हम लोग उसे क्यों लेकर आए हैं शो में. So, Palak and I used to work in the same firm in the articleship. हमने जो फर्स्ट ईयर निकाला है वो साथ में निकाला. Then I switched the firm. Obviously, सभी लोग जानते हैं ये बात को. And हम लोगों ने वो 1 year ही नहीं, but throughout the 5 years from then to now, we've been friends and we've stayed connected. Now she's a chartered accountant, of course, and she is working in industry. And अभी इंडस्ट्री के अंदर वो बैंकिंग सेक्टर में है FP&A रोल के अंदर. तो ईवाई का एक्सपीरियंस कैसा था वो जानने से मतलब नहीं, सबका सेम ही होता है. हम सीधे जानते हैं कि एफपीएनए में जाने का कैसे डिसाइड किया एंड व्हाट वाज द प्रोसीजर टू गेट इनटू इट.
Okay. So when I was completing my articleship in assurance in a big four, in those 3 to 4 years, I understood that I do not wish to get vintage in that particular role. So I started looking out for various other prospects which are available for chartered accountants. And we all know that CA के लिए बहुत सारे job profiles available होते हैं. So that's when I started. So my first step was to figure out which industry do I want to be in. And you can say this. This is very personal. मेरे घर पे I have seen a lot of bankers, and hence I was always intrigued towards banking industry. So that's
अच्छा.
how I chalked out the industry. Then coming to the roles available. Now in banking industry for chartered accountants, there are plethora of roles.
Okay.
Again, in all the roles available, FP&A was something which actually got my interest in. So
Okay.
I figured out FP&A, but of course, when you are a fresher, you can't be like, अच्छा मुझे तो यही करना है. It's not like तुम्हें वो opportunity मिल जाएगी. I of course had 2-3 backup roles in my mind as well, but I was lucky enough to get my first preference.
Okay.
So I got into FP&A.
So Palak, what was the procedure? मतलब how did you get into this? जो आप चाहते थे रोल और आपका जो प्रेफरेंशियल रोल था, how did you get it?
Okay. Sorry to say this, but even before qualifying, I had started looking out for opportunities outside the role that I was then working in.
Okay.
So I had cold messaged a lot of people in the particular organization that I wanted to get in the particular department that I wanted to get in, because for me, even though I knew bits and pieces about FP&A, it was very important for me to know that okay, how is that organization and that particular ecosystem working in. क्योंकि मेरे लिए जाना बहुत जरूरी था कि वहां पे जाके what is going to be expected out of me, how is my day going to look like. So I had started cold messaging people on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn के ही वाया मुझे ये opportunity मिली to interview for a particular organization. And thankfully the 4 rounds of interview जो मुझे actually बहुत ज्यादा लगे कि फ्रेशर के लिए 4 राउंड तो मैंने ज्यादातर बिग फोर्स में ही देखे.
अच्छा.
पर there were 4 rounds of interview wherein in the first round it's going to be very basic. They are going to ask you about your past experience. Then the second round is where they are going to ask you what do you understand about the job, and simple situational questions or something of that sort. And then the third round is going to be where they are going to test your personality.
अच्छा.
I was literally asked questions like, okay, if there is a difference of opinion between you and your manager, how are you going to deal with it? Or of course, what is the definition of work-life balance according to you? Or if you have to choose between personal and professional opportunity, what is it that you're going to prioritize? So they're going to judge you on all these things, and I realized that after giving that interview, the only thing that you had to stick to your answer. वो लोग तुम्हें बहुत घुमाने की कोशिश करते हैं, पर तुम्हें एंड तक तुमने स्टार्ट में जो बोला है उसी चीज को बैक करना चाहिए.
Yes.
And Then the final interview was like, ठीक है, as good as we're taking you on board, it's just that senior management को तुम्हारा शक्ल दिख जाए.
अच्छा.
So this was the elaborate procedure of getting into this profile.
Wonderful. So for the viewers, जैसे आपने cold message किया LinkedIn के through to a lot of contacts and got to know about FP&A. For the viewers, let's get this easy. आप बता दो FP&A होता क्या है, especially banking sector का थोड़ा सा ज्यादा डिटेल में आप बताइए.
Okay. So as the name itself suggests, financial planning and analysis. This in this department, what you typically have to do is you have to forecast. You have to predict your financials with minimal prediction error.
अच्छा.
And now that you have predicted your financials, your next step will be how to make sure that your financials are acceptable or they meet the industry benchmark. So for the simplest example could be, okay, if you know that your costs are way too high, you will try to minimize or you will try to optimize your cost to the best possibility. If your revenues are market driven and that is not something that you have your lever on, then you will try to make sure that your balance sheet or your capital is designed in such a way that at the end to meet your returns goal, etc. So this is typical objective of this entire department. If you have to talk about banking industry, so in banking industry, financial planning and analysis have a lot of subdivisions. Just there is, if you have to get into working capital management, so then you get into treasury trade solutions. If you have to get into securities, derivatives, equities, fixed incomes, commodities, currencies, then you will get into global markets. If you want to deal into get into advisory or mergers and acquisitions, then there is FP&A for investment banking. And then if you have to do financial planning for high net worth individuals, then there is private banking. तो इस तरह से काफी सारे subdivisions होते हैं ये department के.
So ये जो सब डिपार्टमेंट्स या डिविजन्स है, हर एक का अपना एक प्लानिंग एनालिसिस होता होगा. Basically, this process is like budgeting your revenues as well as your costs, right?
And then you, yes.
Yeah, if I link it to, if I simplify it, then simply we'll call it budgeting. But then you also have to go a step ahead to meet that budget, right? It's not just the cost budget, but also your revenue budget that you have to meet because you have to manage your financials to a level.
Right.
And that would also include your assets and liabilities.
So typically what you do is you first forecast your P&L. As soon as you forecasted your P&L, basis your P&L, you will know that, okay, मुझे इतना asset चाहिए to meet my P&L.
Yeah.
So then the second step is you forecast your balance sheet according to your P&L. As soon as you forecast your balance sheet, there are a lot of ratios that come into play. If those ratios are being met, typically तुम्हारा supplementary ratio या तुम्हारे liquidity ratio या तुम्हारे capital adequacy ratio, if they are being met to the desired level, then you're good to go. If not, then because you have predicted the numbers well in advance, you get that extra buffer time wherein you can, if they are not meeting the desired level, you can always go back and try to analyze more and try to get the numbers to the best appropriate level.
Okay, so as per your answer and as per the general assumption, these plans or these budgets are made out of the numbers based on the market approach and also the historical data that you have available.
Right. So typically you're going to rely on historical trends, A. B, you are going to rely on current macroeconomic variables, whatever is the underlying driving force behind your product.
Specifically for the banking sector, especially like
for your product. Now that is dependent on every industry. हर industry का कोई ना कोई driving force होता है. So you have to rely on that driving force as well. And third could be your internal strategy, decision making या जो भी. अगर तुम्हारा internal कोई बहुत बड़ा expansion का let's say idea
plan
process होएगा तो वो.
Right. Okay, so wonderful. So I like how simplistic your answer is tells me that the process is way too complicated because you have to plan the future. And the predicting future is super difficult, as we generally study as well, because that is something you always fail on. And you also told me that you have to achieve the targets that you have made. So not just achieve, but you have to first plan so that you can achieve, and then you have to achieve also. So the planning also has to be absolutely on point. So has there been any situation where you found that the plans are we're not able to meet the plans, or the plans were wrongly made, or there was some error in the plans? So what is the procedure ahead if a mistake happens in the planning?
Um, so Sanket, of course, planning is not going to be 100% accurate. There
Correct.
is going to be prediction error, but that's what we say. The prediction error can be minimized to the best extent possible. But
Mm-hmm.
if you have made a prediction error which is not acceptable or which is above your threshold, so at that time, your only savior could be you do planning for multi-year. You do planning in a way that it's multi-year forecasting.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, even though you have completed your plan cycle, which is a multi-year forecast, there
Mm-hmm.
are going to be a mid-year forecasting. There is going
Okay.
to be monthly forecasting as well. So in
Okay.
that window, you can always rectify your plans. But of course, if you are rectifying your plans, the numbers can't be completely haphazard,
Correct.
right? The prediction error has to be acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is not within the acceptable range, then you will have to go through the entire documentation process or something of that sort.
So
Otherwise,
does it work like a rolling budget
error,
kind of a
then
thing?
of course you can rectify it during the monthly cycles.
So it works like a rolling budget sort of thing?
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Do you find this job interesting?
Yes, of course. Uh, Now I'm going to give a very elaborate answer to that.
Okay.
So to answer it in one word, yes, I find my job interesting. But if
Mm-hmm.
I have to explain why I find my job interesting, particularly because uh, you can divide this job. I mean, at least I divide it, or I look at it in three phases. So
Okay.
the initial phase is where you have to get on with hands-on operational training.
Mm-hmm.
Wherein you have to understand the system. You have to understand how what all reporting is required, what all deliverables are to be made, which system delivers output in which format,
Okay.
how will you rely on those reports
Mm-hmm.
to roll out the monthly BAU process, business as usual process. तो तुम्हारा पहला फेज ना पूरा ऑपरेशनल नो हाउ में ही चले जाता है wherein you
Acha.
understand the system, you understand your reporting, you understand deliverables, you understand what is expected out of you, and how do you have to deliver it.
Mm-hmm.
Then comes your second phase, which is the most interesting phase of this particular job profile, which will be understanding your product, which will be
Okay.
developing technical knowledge, which will be uh, वो बोलते हैं ना पहला फेज इज एक्सेल भरना, वो तो कोई भी कर लेगा.
Right.
लेकिन how do you make yourself indispensable is when you have knowledge pool, when you have expertise, when you have experience,
Mm-hmm.
and when you know कि that is something that can't be replaced by someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the second phase wherein you have to understand more about the product that you're dealing in. How are the macroeconomic variables affecting your product? How can you provide insightful valuable points to your management, basis which they can save dollars for their company. And
Okay.
this is how you can meet your basic objective of this department. Then comes the third phase, which is going to be streamlining your phase 1 and 2,
Okay.
wherein you will try to automate all the processes that you have conducted in the first two phases to the extent
Acha.
possible, so that there's digitization involved, there's Tableau, there's data analytics. You just try to level up your game as much as you can.
So all of these things that you mentioned, the first phase and the third phase required like understanding of a lot of softwares. Do you have to go for specific training on the job or before the job if people can learn something? or with the job they have to take up courses and keep upgrading themselves?
So frankly, I did not go through any prerequisite as such.
Okay.
If I have to answer this question in a light-hearted way, all I can say is go with an analytical mind.
Okay,
But,
simple analytical.
but to answer this question, what I can say is you have a lot of knowledge or knowledge portals available within your organization these days.
Right.
For example, we had one in EY.
Yeah,
So
we
you can
did.
always rely on those to enhance your knowledge as much as you can.
Right.
And at the same time, I would say you don't literally have to stick to all these portals as such. So, I mean, for the simplest way, the only transferable skill that I had from consultancy to industry was Excel. उसके अलावा जो अपन ने OAR EY में भी किया, we all know that that was post facto analysis. We used to question the reason for that amount. ठीक है, अगर 100 का वेरिएंस है तो वो 100 क्यों 100 के पीछे रीजन क्या है, अपन ये नहीं क्वेश्चन करते कि वो 100 ही क्यों है, 90 क्यों नहीं. जबकि FP&A में your initial stage is why is it 100 and not 90 or not 105?
Yeah, because you have to plan also.
Exactly.
Right.
So the only transferable skill for me was Excel. But at the same time, if you have to develop on skills, I would say the simplest could be PowerPoint presentations, which I think we lack.
Yeah.
Chartered accountants. Or another skill, what I could say is talk to people. Try to, if you don't like reading, because frankly, I am that type of person who's going to find escape route when it comes to reading. But at the same time, there is a lot of content available. For that matter, the one that we are creating right now is also an educational video.
Correct,
so
absolutely.
You go through such material and you can always develop your skills.
Okay, so but what kind of skills? Like one would be PowerPoint presentation. Excel is, of course, we learn a lot of it through the articleship phase.
Formal writing skills is also something that
okay, so drafting,
but it is important.
Okay, so drafting of reports is something that is required here.
Right.
All right. So in that sense, probably business communication would be a good course for you to check out, and you definitely should go through business communication anyways, irrespective of the field or domain, because as chartered accountants, it is most commonly heard that we lack communication skills or we lack presentation skills, and one of the way to present yourself is through communicating. So I believe that business communication is definitely quite important for each and every person in general. So okay, great. So apart from all of this, any technical knowledge with respect to, like you mentioned, Tableau, so is somebody supposed to learn it before they go on job, or is it going to add them some advantage in the interview process, or they can simply it is not that much required and simply it can be learned on the job?
I think I learned everything on job, hands-on training. So for me, there was nothing that other than the profession that I am in, other than that, I had actually I went forward and I pursued something, or I got a diploma or a certification course that way. So if you do something over and above, well and good, but there's no prerequisite as such.
Okay, there's no prerequisite. So it's a good news for all the chartered accountants. You don't have to have any other course in your CV or resume. You can just simply have a chartered accountant's degree, कि आप CA हो, and you will get ample opportunities to get into FP&A. But it's an add-on, और वो आपके सिर्फ CV या resume के अंदर एक feather add कर देगा कि आप कोई और ऐसा स्पेसिफिक एनालिटिकल कोर्स अगर करते हो तो, एंड आई एम श्योर कि यू विल गेट एम्पल courses like what are required in FP&A, what may be required in FP&A. Analytical courses सारे available होते हैं LinkedIn पर, Udemy पर, Coursera पर, and so many websites are there. You can just simply check it out.
Courses होते हैं, financial modeling होता है, understanding financial instruments होता है, काफी कुछ होता है, and that is going to help you out.
Correct. But I'm also going to add something here. Yeah, I'm also going to add something here that we have actually created a career guide document जिसके अंदर हमने mention किया है कि FP&A अगर आप करते हो, these are the courses that you can do with CA. तो वो आप जरूर से चेकआउट कीजिए. You can download it from our website. Uh, Palak, I want to ask you one more thing that
That's a good
you've already
initiative.
mentioned. Sorry?
That's a good initiative.
That's yeah, thank you so much. So I would also like to ask you something कि जब CA final की अगर बात करते हैं, because I am sure कि a lot of viewers of this video will be CA finalists. तो ये जो CA final हम लोग जब होते हैं CA final में, we don't think of anything else apart from clearing CA, right? That's our main objective. तो उसके अंदर में से ही कोई ऐसा सब्जेक्ट है जिसके ऊपर स्पेसिफिक फोकस करना होता है फॉर FP&A?
Okay, typically FP&A is a blend of accounts, SFM, costing.
Okay.
So it's
All right.
basically a blend of a lot of subjects.
कॉस्टिंग भी है.
Costing तो main है.
मेन है भाई साहब. आ जाना क्लास में, फास्ट ट्रैक बैच चालू हो रहा है, आ जाओ.
But I would say focus on maybe SFM more because
Okay.
you know there are a lot of financial instruments that you have to understand, or there is a lot of ratio analysis or past trend analysis or optimization and something of that sort involved.
Mhm.
Plus, there are a lot of topics there are a lot of topics that you touch base in SFM, which are at a very elaborate manner are covered in FP&A, especially for the
Okay.
department that I am working for is global
Mhm.
markets. So
Yeah.
मेरे लिए derivative instruments, equities, fixed income instruments, spread products, उन सब का जाना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है. Commodities या rates या
Right.
उन सब का जाना काफी जरूरी है. तो वो मेरे को थोड़ा बहुत SFM का बैकिंग था, नॉलेज था, तो that helped me out. क्योंकि
Okay.
if you have to, for simplest example could be if you have to just analyze the impact of gap between 5-year US Treasury bond and 10-year US Treasury bond. If the gap is widening or steepening, and how is that affecting your revenue? तो ये सब नॉलेज तुम्हें मोस्टली SFM से ही मिलता है.
अच्छा.
Exotic products, options वगैरह.
So here's an advice to each and every student कि अगर आप एग्जाम क्लियर करने के लिए पढ़ रहे हो तो आपको कॉन्सेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी इस तरह से मिलेगी ही नहीं. एंड अल्टीमेटली यू नो दैट व्हेन यू विल बी एंटरिंग इनटू द प्रोफेशनल वर्ल्ड, आप जब जॉब करोगे या आपका खुद का बिजनेस होगा, यू वुड रिक्वायर दिस नॉलेज एंड दीस स्किल्स. तो मेक श्योर दैट यू आर स्टडिंग एनी सब्जेक्ट, तो आप उसे कॉन्सेप्चुअली पढ़ रहे हो, समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हो, एंड नॉट जस्ट फॉर क्लियरिंग द एग्जाम. दिस विल डेफिनेटली हेल्प यू विथ योर फ्यूचर careers and a professional world. So already हमने वैसे तो काफी सारे questions cover किए हैं, but I want to ask general questions like, और बहुत important question ये actually किसी के लिए भी, कि what is your work life balance like and आपके working hours कितने होते हैं? ये एक go to question होता है किसी के भी दिमाग में, भाई मुझे मेरे घंटे बता दो कितने घंटे काम कर.
So the basic difference between consultancy and industry as such is you know your work calendar. You can plan your month, you can plan your आने वाले 3 months because
अच्छा.
your work calendar है तुम्हारे पास.
Okay.
So for me, typically in a particular month, if I know that my 2 weeks are going to be supremely hectic, I will be well prepared in my mind that okay, I have to log in at let's say 9 a.m. and log out का time शायद 2 भी बज सकता है, 3 भी बज सकता है या 12 भी बज सकता है. You don't know. But at the same time, if I know that my week is going to be a busy week, then I know that okay, I mean I am going to be occupied throughout the day, and I might have to stretch for an hour or two, but not more than that. And at the same time, best part is if you get you know about your slack period as well, so you can utilize that prudently. कि तुम्हारा जो भी डेलीज रहता है वो तुम भेज दो, और उसके बाद में you get time to improvise on what you had done earlier during the month. You can I mean I'll give you a simple example. जब मैं initially एक report भेजती थी, I used to take 2 days to you know complete the entire operational bit of that report. And by the time it was the end of second day, I had to send out the report because that was the deadline. But over the months, मैंने वो report को during my slack period इतना automate किया कि वो report मुझे अब बनाने को शायद बहुत कम time मिलता है. And वो जो time save होता है ना, वो saved time में मैं उस report को बहुत अच्छे से analyze कर पाती हूँ.
That's a wonderful point.
So, because and all this is happening only because I know that how my work month is going to look like. So this ultimately create a lot of work satisfaction for you as well, because you're not always going to be in the question mark situation that oh my god, मेरे को सैटरडे ऑफ मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा, या मैं संडे के डिनर के लिए मेरे को मैनेजर का परमिशन लगेगा. तो ये सब नहीं होता है. So that way.
So one good point here which I found is कि जैसे हम लोग आर्टिकलशिप में होते हैं और ये हम लोग कंप्लेन कर रहे होते थे कि इतना वर्क प्रेशर होता है, वी डोंट गेट टू लर्न अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स, वी जस्ट फिलिंग द एक्सेल फाइल्स. बट यहाँ पर मुझे एक बहुत अच्छी चीज समझ में आई, विच इज कि जब आपको पता है कि आपका थोड़ा सा इजी या फ्री पीरियड आने वाला है, यू कैन वर्क ऑन दीज एक्सेल फाइल्स इन सच अ मैनर कि आप उसको सिंपल कर सकते हो, एंड देन यू कैन मूव टुवर्ड्स टेक्निकल एनालिटिकल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, जहां पर आप समझ सकते हो कि आप कर क्या रहे, विच एक्चुअली इंटरेस्ट, फिर आपका इंटरेस्ट बिल्ड करता है वो काम के अंदर. वंस यू स्टार्ट अंडरस्टैंडिंग व्हाट यू आर डूइंग एंड व्हाई यू आर डूइंग, यू फील कनेक्टेड टू इट. तो फिर एक बेटर अंडरस्टैंडिंग मिलती है कि हम क्यों कर रहे हैं कोई चीज, और फिर डेफिनेटली अपना प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ जाता है, जो कि अल्टीमेटली कंपनी के लिए भी फायदेमंद होता है, हमारे लिए भी फायदेमंद होता है.
More than that, what I believe is Excel ना कोई भी भरना सीख जाएगा संकेत, मतलब वो तो पीरियड तुम Excel किसी से भी भरवा सकते हो. But as I mentioned earlier, you have to make yourself indispensable. So for that, your technical knowledge is important.
This is exactly what we had discussed in the previous episode as well. I was discussing this with Harsh. कि you have to look forward to something जिसे replace नहीं किया जा सके by machine, because human are not going to be replaced by human. Human is going to be replaced with machine. So you have to compete with those set of things now. और फ्यूचर में अगर आपका जॉब आपके पास में सिक्योर्ड नहीं है, एंड यू कैन इजीली लूज योर जॉब, सो यू हैव टू बी एट अ प्लेस जहां पर आप निकाले ना जा सको, आपको कोई रिप्लेस न कर सके. सो वंडरफुल पॉइंट. सी ये सेम पॉइंट अगेन एंड अगेन आप फाइंड करोगे, व्यूअर्स से बात कर रहा हूँ, कि ये पॉइंट रिपीट हो रहा है, बिकॉज दिस इज द पॉइंट विच इज रिक्वायर्ड टुडे टू बी डिस्कस्ड. और इस बारे में कोई सोचता नहीं है ज्यादा, बट इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू थिंक दिस वे कि आप जो काम सिलेक्ट करते हो उस काम को आप कितना सिक्योर तरीके से कर सकते हो, कोई आपको वहां से हटा सकता है या नहीं हटा सकता है. इट्स गोइंग टू अफेक्ट योर फ्यूचर, एंड योर फ्यूचर डिपेंड्स ऑन दिस डिस्कशन. सो डेफिनेटली वंडरफुल पॉइंट. और अगर आपने पिछला एपिसोड चेक नहीं किया, डेफिनेटली चेक इट आउट. आई हैव वन मोर क्वेश्चन हियर कि अभी जो आपने मुझे सारा चीज बताया, जैसे आपने मुझे ये भी बताया कि यू गो फॉर अंडरस्टैंडिंग द टेक्निकल स्टफ, व्हाट ड्राइव्स यू टुवर्ड्स दिस जॉब? ऐसा क्या है इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्टर जिसकी वजह से आप सुबह उठ पाते हो एक ऑफिस के लिए और आप काम कर पाते हो?
I have to frankly answer, my monthly credit is directly proportional to my work-life balance.
Oh, अच्छा.
But I think driving factors over here could be the SWOT analysis that I do, when it comes to consultancy and industry. So,
okay.
A very good reason could be the team mix. Now, team mix again is very subjective, because you never know तुम्हें आगे जाके कौन सा team मिलने वाला है. But जो basic difference बात मैं कर रही हूँ, in articleship we were always surrounded by chartered accountants.
Yeah.
But यहाँ पे I work with people who are CFAs, who are ABC IIMs, or maybe who are tier 1, 2, 3 MBAs, yeah, someone who has not pursued any of such course, but still they are hired because they have some other certification and diploma course relating to banking, because of which these guys were pulled into this sector.
Yeah.
So when you interact with such people, your horizon also broadens. That could be. Another was again in consultancy, you are usually within the same age bracket. जबकि यहाँ पे you're dealing with people who are, let's say, 20 years senior to you age wise, और because we are at the more, मतलब हमसे छोटा कोई नहीं होता है ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. हमारे साथ कंसल्टेंसी में वो कैसे होता था, जो 20 इयर्स का गैप होता था वो तुम्हारे और तुम्हारे पार्टनर के बीच में होता था, एंड वहां पे इंटरेक्शन बहुत कम होता है.
बहुत कम होता है.
लेकिन यहाँ पे you have to on daily basis interact with someone who is 20 years or 30 years elder to you. So
Right.
that is all. It's not driving force. I'm just saying that it's something different.
It's different, quite.
And मेरे लिए initially the driving force was virtual onboarding, which I
अच्छा.
don't think your viewers will have to go through, but that was also a process or a task in itself. क्योंकि virtual
Okay.
onboarding में कई बार ऐसे होता है तुम ऑफिस में बाजू में चेयर खींच के जाके बैठ के समझ के आ जाते हो. यहाँ पे
Yeah.
तुम्हें उनको पिंग करना है, उनके अवेलेबिलिटी के अकॉर्डिंग तुम सब सीखना है, उससे
सीखोगे.
सारा डाउनलोड लेना है. So all this, even though challenging, was very interesting, and that used to drive me. So that's interesting.
Quite a different point, क्योंकि I have heard a lot of people say कि ये बिल्कुल भी interesting नहीं है, but let me tell you, Palak always likes the uninteresting things more. So, but great answer. I really like the point that you get to connect with a lot of people who have like years and years of experience in certain industry. You get to learn their perspective. और इतनी सारी चीजें होती है, उनसे बात कर करके आप सीख सकते हो that when communication happens, there are certain things that you learn while just simply communicating with people. That is what the intention is here of this podcast as well. तो वही चीज को पलक ने अपने जॉब में भी अप्लाई किया हुआ है. She likes to contact and she likes to get in touch with people who are, of any age bracket, and उनके पास में years and years of experience है, and that is something that you should do. कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि उसे experience है या नहीं है. Even in your articleship period, आपको अपने colleague से बात करनी चाहिए, चाहे वो आपके साथ वाला ही क्यों ना. आपके फ्रेंड से बात करो, वो अगर किसी और असाइनमेंट पे तो उससे बात करो, सीखो कि वो क्या कर रहा है, तो आपको एक्स्ट्रा चीजें सीखने को मिलेगी. आई गेट अ लॉट ऑफ रिक्वेस्ट एंड गेट अ लॉट ऑफ कॉल्स फ्रॉम आर्टिकलशिप स्टूडेंट्स कि हमें सीखने को नहीं मिल रहा है आर्टिकलशिप. ये प्रॉब्लम बहुत कॉमन है, एंड स्पेसिफिकली इन द फर्म्स व्हिच आर देयर इन द टियर 3 सिटीज जो होती है, उनमें मोस्टली जो फर्म्स होती है वहां पर ऐसा चैलेंज आ जाता है कई बार that articles are not able to learn something. तो ऐसे में मेरा सजेशन हमेशा यही होता है, स्पीक विथ योर कलीग्स एंड ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट दे आर डूइंग. तो आपको कुछ ना कुछ एक्स्ट्रा सीखने को मिलेगा. दिस विल इंटरेस्ट यू ड्यूरिंग योर आर्टिकलशिप एज वेल. ग्रेट पॉइंट. सो जो नए एंट्रेंट्स हैं, अभी जो व्यूअर्स है, सीए फाइनलिस्ट है, when they will enter and when they will decide to enter into FP&A, what are the challenges, basic challenges apart from virtual onboarding, क्योंकि वो तो शायद अब हट जाएगा. So what are the basic challenges that they might come across when entering into FP&A, क्योंकि किसी को उसका कोई आइडिया होता नहीं है पहले से.
To reiterate what I mentioned earlier, initially, by the way, brilliant question. Initially, your operational work is going to be more than your technical work, because you will have to adjust and adapt to that organization. Plus, you will have to adjust to the working of the working style. क्योंकि हम आर्टिकलशिप में या टैक्स करते हैं मोस्टली या ऑडिट करते हैं, तो अपने काम का तरीका और अपना काम टोटली डिफरेंट है compared to this.
Right.
So adapting it will take a little more time, but at the same time, just because the operational bit is more, you cannot pass a judgment based on those initial let's say 3 to 4 months कि भाई यहाँ पे तो एक्सेल ही एक्सेल है. It's only when you complete the operational part will you get to the next step, which is the understanding technicalities.
Right, which is way more interesting.
That is one initial I would say challenge. Other could be because I come from banking industry, I've realized, and initially when I was in audit, I was auditing media companies.
Yeah.
So for me, media was very relatable because we used to consume that content on daily basis. लेकिन यहाँ पे जो बैंकिंग प्रोडक्ट्स होते हैं, एक तो हम वो डेली बेसिस पे जब तक आप let's say if you're not into financial markets या stock markets as such, you're not going to be acquainted with those terms.
Right.
And B, the products are extremely dry. So understanding those products and it's very complex. So
Yeah.
you will have to develop that acumen that okay मुझे ये समझना ही है. So that's going to take a little time.
Right.
Third, what I would say is something that I'm still trying to figure out is when you go up the hierarchy, uh, the roles and responsibilities that change. You know, that is something that I'm still trying to figure out because at present क्या हो रहा है? If I am executing something, even my senior can execute that. That's given, right?
Yeah,
But if my senior is executing something, even I am able to execute that.
अच्छा, okay.
Work execution है ना, that is a little both an oppressing for me because I don't.
But is that happening only with you, or it can happen with anyone?
No, it can happen actually with anyone. So
Acha, okay.
trying to understand here is up the hierarchy. How is your roles and responsibility? How are your roles and responsibility gonna change?
I think the basic answer to that would be management. Like at the lower level, you are not supposed to manage people,
Agreed. I mean, there are
and
people going to be
right.
reporting into you. So, of course, that is an add-on. But
Correct.
I would say, and of course, analytically, they are at well advanced levels than
Yeah.
what we are. But फिर भी थोड़ा बहुत execution level पे कुछ change. But again, I'm trying to figure that out. But
Okay.
these are the few challenges that आपको initial 6-7 months में दिखेगा.
Wonderfully answered. First point was कि बहुत जल्दी जज मत करो, रुको, सब्र रखो. मतलब रुको जरा सब्र करो वैसा नहीं, सब्र रखो, अच्छा फल मिलेगा. ठीक है, आगे जाके इंटरेस्टिंग हो जाता है. Second challenge was I completely missed out the point. Could you just reiterate it?
So second was the products are very complex.
Products are complex.
But this is again very subjective.
Right. Second is कि अगर आपको इंटरेस्ट है बैंकिंग सेक्टर में, उसके जो प्रोडक्ट्स होते हैं उसमें अगर इंटरेस्ट है, फाइनेंस साइड पे ज्यादा इंक्लाइंड हो, डेफिनेटली दिस माइट इंटरेस्ट यू, बट स्टिल यू हैव टू होल्ड योर ग्राउंड. आपको ये मेंटेन करना पड़ेगा कि हाँ मेरे को समझ के ही रखना है इसको. Otherwise, I'm not leaving it until I understand the entire document, even though the document is completely grey. तो समझ में आ सकता है और फिर इंटरेस्टिंग भी हो सकता है. ऑफ कोर्स मतलब आई कैन डेफिनेटली इमेजिन दिस कि कोई फाइनेंस का कीड़ा होगा ना, उसको बहुत पसंद आने वाला है ये जॉब. बट द थर्ड पॉइंट इज कि अब द हायरार्की कैसे रोल्स एंड रिस्पांसिबिलिटी चेंज होती है. शी स्टिल ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड या हाउ दे इवॉल्व. तो ये बेसिक चैलेंजेस है. वेरी वेल आंसर्ड. एंड आई जस्ट हैव द लास्ट क्वेश्चन फॉर दिस सेशन, which is ki, do you have any piece of advice for the students with respect to FP&A or in general with the preparation for CA final?
I think we've covered FP&A a lot.
Okay.
So, I suddenly feel old. We are on the other side of the table. कि अब हम बताएंगे तुम्हें.
I constantly feel that.
But to answer this now, we have a lot of study material or a lot of content at our disposal, which if I have to do SWOT analysis now, I would say it's a complete threat. Because the more available material you have in front of you, the more confused you get, the more lost you feel.
True.
So I would suggest that, let's say for example, costing में तुमने 4 professors देखे and eventually you decide that you want to stick to Sanket, then trust in him. Then don't go haywire or adhere to or completely abide by what he says. That could be one. Second could be the 15 minutes that you get with your question paper. Those are like make or break situation. So अगर question paper बहुत difficult है, तो take long breaths because वो question paper सिर्फ तुम्हारे लिए नहीं, सबके लिए difficult है. So you don't have to panic. Or if the question paper is, let's say, easy for you, yeah, you think that it is a lottery question paper, then don't get excited again. The whole idea is stay calm, because if you get excited, you make silly mistakes. And trust me when I'm saying this, because this comes with personal experience. Calm yourself down. And I think I stuck to these two things. Okay. So you have a lot of strategies and everything available throughout the market. But whatever you stick to, just stick to that. Ground rule यही रखो, एक को पकड़ा है बस. हर जगह से
हाँ
ब्रेकफास्ट
एग्जैक्टली
कवर करने का कोशिश मत करो कि इसने ये
या
चैप्टर बहुत अच्छे से पढ़ाया या उसका मैंने दोस्त से सुना और ये बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, वैसा मत करो।
so what I used to do is मतलब मैंने आई थिंक कभी शेयर नहीं किया है ओपनली एंड नथिंग टू बी ऐसा छुपाने वाली कोई बात भी नहीं थी, जिस मौका नहीं मिला कभी शेयर करने का। बट हाँ, व्हाट आई यूज्ड टू डू इज कि आई यूज्ड टू स्टिक विद 1 or 2 प्रोफेसर्स, दैट्स इट। एक वो जरूर होते थे जिनसे मैंने क्लासेस लिए 100%, वो तो होंगे ही होंगे। और एक और दूसरे प्रोफेसर जो भी बहुत अच्छे होते थे, वो समझ में आता था आफ्टर वॉचिंग अ फ्यू वीडियोस। तो एक बार आपने डिसाइड कर लिया कि यू गोना स्टिक विद दीस प्रोफेसर्स, देन स्टिक टू देम। ओके, सिर्फ उन्हीं का कंटेंट देखो, बाकी सबको देखने की जरूरत नहीं है। यू विल फाइंड सो मच कंटेंट कि आप कंटेंट ही देखते रह जाओगे। क्लासेस हमें एक बार से दूसरी बार देखने की जरूरत नहीं है, खुद से ही पढ़ना पड़ेगा। तो प्रोफेसर्स को रिवीजन तक ही रखो। वंडरफुल पॉइंट। बाय द वे, क्लासेस अगर आपने नहीं करी है, फास्ट ट्रैक बैच चालू हो रही है, ज्वाइन।
Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Palak, for coming. I hope you had fun.
I did. Thanks for having me.
I had a lot of fun and FP&A स्पेसिफिकली बैंकिंग सेक्टर पे मेरे को समझ में आया काफी कुछ। बट हम एक और वीडियो इसके ऊपर कवर करने की कोशिश करेंगे, जिसमें हम अपना जो नॉर्मल FP&A होता है ना बाकी इंडस्ट्रीज का, उसे भी कवर करने की कोशिश करेंगे। ये फाइनेंस साइड से इंक्लाइंड होकर ये वीडियो आपको हेल्प करेगा। Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you had fun as well watching this podcast episode. और
Can I
अगर
uh,
या
add something?
यस
Like this video, subscribe to his channel, hit the bell icon to get notification whenever. I always wanted to do this actually.
do what she
I don't
says.
have a YouTube channel, so
You can always have one. Do what she says and उसके अलावा आप और वीडियोस देख सकते हो। आपकी स्क्रीन पर सारे लिंक्स आ जाएंगे, तो उन्हें देखो, सारे एपिसोड्स को फॉलो करो। और फॉलो करने के लिए अगले एपिसोड सब्सक्राइब करना बहुत जरूरी है, तो इसने जैसा कहा कर लो। ठीक है, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वॉचिंग। आई विल सी यू नेक्स्ट टाइम।